And here we go. Welcome in to another edition of Bucky and BK. Today is Friday, August 14th, 2026. And the Buck and I are not with y'all for the next 2 hours. Another load management day for the Buck, turning into Kawhi Leonard over here. So joining me today in his stead, a name you know, a face you know, a voice you know, a guy, maybe the guy that I owe my entire career to, the first person to offer me a full-time job in the business when I was just a junior at the University of Texas. I was fortunate enough to produce his radio show, The Bottom Line, with the late, great Sean Adams. He's a longtime writer, analyst, and radio personality. Now getting it done at horns247.com. The great Chip Brown is with me today. Happy Friday, my man. How are you?
BK. I mean, I'm proud of my radio tree because it includes some people that you wouldn't quite expect. Like, Rod Babers, and hell, I think I even gave Fozzie Whitaker his first appearance on the radio.
There we go.
But BK, I mean, this young scrapper comes in as a junior at the University of Texas, and within minutes, I knew this guy had what it takes.
Appreciate that.
Look at you. Just on a rocket ship. Pulling straight up, baby.
We're on a cruise ship right now, actually.
Yeah, this is crazy. Now, is this the first time you've ever done a show from a cruise ship?
This is. It's, I think, the third cruise in my life, but the first one I've been on since I was in middle school. And currently somewhere, I believe it's the Pacific Ocean. That's the one on the left coast of the country. And we're hoping the internet holds up, but it seems like we're okay to this point. And yes, definitely, to answer your question, have you done a show from a cruise ship before?
Oh my God, no.
Okay.
I've never been on a cruise.
Really?
I've been on like a hovercraft between London and Paris, but that's it. I've never been on a cruise.
Any interest in cruising or
I don't know. There's too many documentaries out right now about cruise ships gone wrong.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Oh yeah. Like you go to any of these subscription channels and there's, the crash of the Edmund Fitzgerald, the crash of, Party Boat Central. But I'm sure your captain is not drunk right now and is paying close attention to where the rocks are, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're live streaming the Titanic Part 2 here. And look, we don't get access to the captain, so I have no idea what he's doing. Maybe he is guzzling some Altstadt beer today. Who knows? Who knows what we're in for? We just boarded the ship yesterday, just took off last night, so I have no idea what we're in for these next few days.
Mikey G calls it a floating petri dish.
Yeah, it's probably not wrong. I literally am sucking on a cough drop right now as we speak. I loaded up on the meds just to be safe. But
how long is this cruise?
Week-long cruise, an Alaskan cruise. So took off from Vancouver yesterday.
Awesome. Vancouver's awesome.
And this thing will end in Anchorage, Alaska. I've never been anywhere close to Anchorage, Alaska. So a few stops, Ketchikan, Juneau, insert other Alaskan city here.
Are you going to Glacier Bay?
I'm just doing what I'm told. It's my girlfriend's family who invited me on this trip.
Okay, I was going to say, are you on this? You're not on this thing solo if you don't know what's going on.
Not on this thing solo, a +1. Very happy and fortunate to be here, but you talk about being along for the ride. I am very much along for the ride. Wherever I'm told to be, that's where I'm going to be.
Well, you're going to have some of the best seafood you've ever had.
Yeah.
The crab legs are like, they don't even fit in the screen here.
Oh, man.
Salmon, the fish, it's going to be amazing.
I'm excited. I'm excited. And I feel like I'm bragging too much, but
So you literally got on the boat and went to bed?
no. We got on the boat yesterday afternoon, and it just didn't depart until last night.
Okay.
But spent some time on the ship, walking around, toured it, had dinner, and yeah, and then went to bed. So
They got a
um,
casino on that thing?
they got a casino. I have not made my donation yet, but there is a casino on this thing, and I'm prepared to lose a few bucks. And apparently, I haven't confirmed this yet, but most casinos have ATMs, right? You got to pay in cash. Apparently, this one you can use your like room key. So you don't need to go to the ATM, which is incredibly dangerous. Like I always bring a certain amount of money to a casino, whether it's Vegas, whether it's
Oh,
wherever
yeah.
I am, and that's like my cap. All right, I know I'm not going to withdraw any money. Whatever I bring, that's all I'm willing to
That's it.
lose. But unfortunately, that's they've got the workaround here. They really want my money.
I'll tell you what, that will take discipline. Because here's the thing. What if you get hot? Okay.
Yeah.
What if you get on a heater? You know what that feels like. You don't take those for granted. If you get on that heater, you can dip your toe in the water, but you don't. I always say you lose 3 hands, like you play blackjack.
Yeah.
If I lose 3 hands in a row, I'm up and I'm out.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Hmm.
And I keep going until I find it. I like to gamble in the mornings when no one's there.
Okay.
So I can pick a dealer. I can go one-on-one with the dealer. If that dealer's, killing me, I'm out.
Yeah.
But sometimes you find that dealer where it's just you and the dealer and you're killing it. You get on that run and then you're like, I'm buying drinks today. Not for the whole trip, just for the day.
Just for the day.
And then everyone's like, oh man, BK, he's the best. He won, he got hot, and he bought us drinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The gambler mindset, right? Got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
that's
I
right.
like that. It's good
That's right.
advice.
And if you
right?
get killed early, you're going to be tempted to chase.
Oh yeah.
So don't do that.
Okay.
Dip your toe in the water if it's happening. Sometimes you can just sit there and have a good time. You're kind of treading water. You're not really going up. You're not really going down. And that's fun too.
Yeah.
I told you my story about, I'm convinced that I was at the blackjack table the night that Jim Harbaugh met his wife.
No.
Okay. So I'm in Vegas and I'm at the Mandalay Bay and I'm looking to play a little blackjack. And I hear this ruckus at this table. People are laughing and blah, blah, blah. I get over there and Jim Harbaugh is sitting on first base. Okay.
Okay.
And he's getting killed. And he's joking with the dealer and everybody's laughing and everything. And then, so I'm on third base. And there's this hot gal in the middle of the table. And Harbaugh kind of keeps looking at her. And he doesn't move until she moves. And so he's there for I want to say 45 minutes more. And then she gets up and leaves and he cashes out and goes looking for her. And that's the woman he's now married to.
How about that? So he wasn't even subtle about it. Like as soon as she got up, he just up and left and tracked her down.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel like I've had this weird moment with Jim Harbaugh that
have you had the chance to tell him that story?
No.
Have you ever interviewed? Oh, see, that's
No.
another reason I wish Texas played Michigan in that
I know.
2023 championship game. Obviously, you're from Michigan.
I would have said, Jim,
yeah.
Did you meet your wife at the Mandalay Bay playing blackjack?
He would have thought you were the biggest stalker, the biggest creep
he would have
of
been
all
like,
time.
This guy knows what happened that night. Did I not pay my marker?
That's so good. Was he wearing khakis and drinking milk at the table, or was he? Yeah, and all checks out.
But he's funny, man. He had a quote when his NFL career came to an end. He's like, I found out I got cut my girlfriend broke up with me and I found out my dog had parvo. He said my life was like a country music song.
Mm,
And he was cracking one-liners the whole night at the blackjack table. So,
that is fantastic. Great
yeah.
story. Great
Yeah.
story. Hey,
Yeah.
happiness is a choice, Chip. You're getting a lot of love for filling in for the Buck today, my man.
The immortal words of Judy Brown. Happiness is a choice. That was our kind of opener for the bottom line for all the years.
Yeah, that was a
And
beautiful
then
line.
Sean would end it saying the dream is free, the hustle is sold separately. Go to work.
Go to work. Yep.
Peace.
Those are great times. Great. Still
Yeah.
got that Create Chaos shirt that we made for
Yes.
Texas
We're trying to help
basketball.
Shaka.
Trying to help. Yeah, nobody could have helped Shaka, but Texas basketball. We might talk a little Texas basketball towards the end of today's show because there's a lot of excitement with Sean Miller now going into his second season in Austin.
What a roster.
What a roster it is.
What an expensive what a roster.
Yeah, well, same thing can be said with the Texas football team, and we'll dive into the sports conversation here on a Friday. Again, Chip Brown, the great Chip Brown of horns247.com, filling in for the Buck on a Friday show. A lot to dive into. The first scrimmage of the fall comes up tomorrow, and I guess we'll start with that, Chip, because I kind of want to get your thoughts on what you have seen and what you have heard to this point. You put out a great insider piece yesterday talking about 10 questions that the Longhorns still need to answer between now and the start of the season, but the pads are on. The first scrimmage of the fall is tomorrow. What are the things that you are going to be paying most attention to in the first real game-like setting of training camp?
Well, everything's going to start with the offensive line because, they gotta protect Arch Manning. They gotta create some running lanes for these make you miss ability running backs that Steve Sarkisian went out and landed. You want to see Arch Manning pick up where he left off last year, having worked through the ups and downs and just having to be Arch Manning as a D1 college starting quarterback. All this stuff he had to get out of his own head. He did. And if he can pick up where he left off and just be comfortable and hit the layups, as Steve Sarkisian would say, the passes 0 to 9 yards, the ones that, he had a 59% completion rate, or 69% completion rate on 0 to 9. And that was the worst among the 10 quarterbacks who, are considered the top of the game. And so he's got to, and I think he will. I think he's a different guy. He's much more of, it's his team. He's a leader now. He wanted to earn that last year. Steve Sarkisian's like, no, you don't have to earn it. We need you to lead. And he didn't feel like he earned it until like Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So that was game 9, by the way. So he's a totally different guy. And then he does have weapons now. I mean, we think about Ryan Wingo. Ryan Wingo had a good year, 54 catches, 800 plus yards, 7 touchdowns. You're like, okay, that's good stuff. He dropped 7 balls, led the team. 4 of those were on third down. 1 against Georgia, 2 against Mississippi State, 1 that would have gone for a touchdown against Mississippi State in a game that they ended up having to win in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
He dropped 1 against Ohio State. So on third down, he had the worst contested catch rate on the team, 4 of 14. Like, there's so much room for Ryan Wingo to go up.
Yeah.
And that's huge because we know Cam Coleman. I mean, everyone's seen the biblical viral catch, which, by the way, a source of mine told me the football was so wet with sweat that it slipped out of Arch's hand and looked like a helicopter in the air. And Cam Coleman still brought that thing down. So, and he was getting Arch was getting pressured, which is why so many people thought the ball was tipped. But yeah, Cam Coleman, real deal. Ryan Wingo takes the next step. Watch out. Emmett Mosley and Dalen McCutcheon are probably the best route runners on the team. And so you just want to see the offensive line give this offense the time it needs to get going. And let's see these running backs, man, because Raheem Biles probably did the best job of describing the running styles of these backs. I don't know if you have the audio of him talking about how he would describe Raleigh Brown and Hollywood Smothers and Derek Cooper.
Yeah, no, that's a good segue. Let's get to that right here because I definitely want to get your thoughts on the run game because it really feels like Steve Sarkisian has made that a point of emphasis to this point in camp is to just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. So here's Raheem Biles, as you mentioned yesterday, talking about the differences between those top three Texas tailbacks.
I'm gonna start with Hollywood. Hollywood is more like I would say just like if he gets the ball and he sees a hole, he's hitting it. Like his vision is great. Like he got great vision. He got great speed, long speed. Like, and he can make you miss too, obviously. And he can catch the ball and stuff. And he like very technical sound. With Raleek, that boy, he twitchy. Like you got to be on your P's and Q's if you're trying to tackle him, because if not, he gonna make you miss every time. He's explosive fast, and like I said, he twitchy. So his routes is very crispy and like everything. I feel like D Coop, he's just like an all around back. Like he got the size, he got the speed, and he just the way he's been coming along has been like great. Like you can really see the improvement. Like, and I sit right next to him in the locker, so he always asking me like different questions, like what's up with this, like why you fit this way, and his like he's been really working on his pass blocking too. Like you can see, like we did 1-on-1s a day. Like he really, like you can see like the improvement he make. Like he always trying to go with the older guys, like so he can really get some real game time reps. And I appreciate that from him because he trying to get work. We all trying to get better. So like, yeah, Hollywood, he's like a striker. Like you better get hands on him quick or he's gone. Raleek, he real twitchy. Receiver, like real twitchy. And then D Coop, he's just like a all around type of back. Like he could do everything for real.
Yeah, so there you go, Chip. I think Raheem Biles yesterday became my favorite player on the team. I mean, look, the ability's there, and Texas fans are going to see that for the first time 3 weeks from tomorrow. But go watch his tape at Pitt, and the guy's just a playmaking machine. But what a media member's dream. I mean, what a great answer. He gave nothing but great answers yesterday, elaborating, talking about all three of those running backs, and then wrapping it up succinctly with the summary at the end. That's the dream for our job, is it not?
Oh, yeah. No, we love Raheem Biles. I can't wait to see this guy. I mean, he's probably the player I'm most excited about watching because, look, it's awesome to see a great receiver. It's awesome to see great running backs. And I think these guys, I mean, Steve Sarkisian purposely went out and just in case the offensive line was struggling, he went and got two of the best make you miss ability running backs in the portal. And when Raheem Biles describes Raleigh Brown as twitchy, Jabbar Jalouk, the running backs coach, described him as Tasmanian devil full of, knives, who is a pit bull who loves to fight. And I'm like, yes, sign me up.
We'll take that.
But Raheem Biles is so slippery, and he's the kind of guy that he processes so well. He sees everything, and then he moves. And if he can just reach and get an arm through two blockers and get a hand on the ankle of the running back, that's how he gets so many of his tackles for loss. He doesn't clear the offensive line and get both arms around a guy and then bring him down. He's the kind of guy that knifes through the line and just gets a piece of that running back or that quarterback. And he's just so he sees the game so well. And every coach I've talked to, I did a big piece on him. His high school coach was like, he blocked so many punts. And most of the time he said our punt block was not on, but he was our guy to make sure that the punt gets punted. So he's kind of waiting. And sometimes he would see a crease and be like, I can get that. And he would just go and he would get it without roughing the punter, the coach said. I mean, he said the guy always took the right angle. He never went into the punter. And I think he still has the, high school record. He played high school ball with Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles' dad was the one who said, I think your future is at linebacker, because he started off at safety. And, but he also, he's an incredible athlete. So I can't wait to see, because how many, the two best college linebackers I've ever covered are Zach Thomas, and he may have been the most instinctive from day one, and Derek Johnson. And Derek was so athletic at 6'4", 220, 230, that teams would scheme him to get him out of position because they knew he would take the bait. Like early in Derek's career, if you talk to him, he was like, yeah, I took the bait. He said it was Greg Robinson who finally said, just stand there when the ball is snapped, read your keys. Don't just fall for your keys, like read them.
Yeah.
And Raheem Biles is that way. He just sees the game. So he makes plays that you can't account for. And I'm really excited to see what he does, because I thought it was interesting. He said yesterday that Will Muschamp loves me in coverage. And last year they put Anthony Hill in coverage a lot. And I think he wanted to show the NFL that he could play in coverage, and when they really needed pressure on the quarterback, they would move him back up to the line, sort of put him in a strong side look. And which, that last year, you kind of had Trey Moore in that role, and you've got Brad Spence in that role this year. But I don't want to see Raheem Biles in coverage too much. I mean, look, the guy did every interception he's ever had, he's taken for a touchdown.
Crazy.
How about those odds?
Yeah, we'll take those. Yeah, I'm excited about him. And I think it's interesting. You brought up the special teams. It seems like Raheem Biles is going to play special teams at Texas, and the Longhorns, this coaching staff, they take that third phase very seriously, and they're not afraid to put their star players out there. They don't care that they're maybe risking them getting hurt on offense or defense. They want their best 11 on the field as often as possible. So sometimes you get players the caliber of Raheem Biles, Chip, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to do special teams. I'm above that. This is a guy who seems like he's all about playing for the team and doing whatever it takes to win. And again, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. If he isn't already, I think he's going to be a fan favorite really quickly. And it's interesting you bring up Anthony Hill. I mean, you think he has the ability? He's not going to be here for 3 years like Ant Hill was, but do you think he can just be a good replacement and have that type of impact in the heart of the Texas defense this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the combination of Raheem Biles and Justin Cryer, I think there will be little drop-off from Anthony Hill and Leonga Lafau, because Cryer will play the role of Lafau, and they'll put Raheem Biles in that weak side position. I mean, it flips. It's almost not even worth saying he plays middle and he plays weak, because it flips. You have to be able to play both. But they'll put Raheem Biles in position to make the plays. And I'm looking forward to seeing it, because I think they've got experienced playmaking at every level of this defense. And that's going to matter. Then you get Will Muschamp dialing these guys up like, a video game. And Muschamp, the great thing about Muschamp is he has great feel in play calling for when to bring the pressure, how to bring the pressure, because he's going to bring the pressure. he's not going to blitz all the time. He's not going to bring 5. He's not going to bring 6 all the time. He's going to bring 4, but he's going to bring them from different places, and he's going to try to catch you off guard. And he's going to play tighter coverage on the outside, especially even if it's, a zone coverage. He's going to make it look like man. He's going to put guys up on the line, and it's going to be a lot different from what we've seen under Pete Kwiatkowski, who did a great job.
Yeah.
But Will Muschamp is always trying to bring pressure while stopping the run.
Yeah, no more aggression. Clearly what Steve Sarkisian was looking for when he made that change. So hopefully we see it. Chip Brown of Horns 24/7 filling in for the Buck on a Friday show. We'll dive back into the Texas conversation. I want to get Chip's thoughts on a couple of position battles on the defensive side of the football while we're talking Will Muschamp. But real quick, a couple of sponsors. Shout outs. I want to give some love first to our friends at Kalshi. Before the season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who wins the conference? Who makes the playoff? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. Will the Texas Longhorns qualify for the college football playoff this season? Right now, the Longhorns are trading at a 65% probability, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $150 if Texas clinches a playoff spot. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position, trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app and use code BUCKY to get $10 off when you trade $10. KALSHI. It's Kalshi. Trade on anything. And also some love to our friends at McCall Custom Homes, custom home builders and renovators in Central Texas. If you've been thinking about that dream home, you want to either start from scratch or, hey, you like your current space, your current location, you just want to add on to it, McCall Custom Homes, they are the folks to call. Mike McCall and his dad, it's a father-son team with more than 4 decades of experience in Central Texas, so they know what it takes to turn a Central Texas home into something truly special. A+ rated by the BBB, tons of 5-star reviews online. They do the very best work. All you have to do is check out their website, McCallCustomHomesATX.com. Free estimates for listeners of this show. You can call or text Mike directly as well, 512-633-9580. And a shout out to Centex Tickets. We are, 22 days away from Texas football. If you want to attend any Longhorn game in person this season, whether it's at home or on the road, or of course the OU game in Dallas, Centex Tickets has you covered. Don't forget to use the promo code CENTEX10. If you type that in at checkout, you're going to get 10% off of any ticket purchase from our great friends at CENTEXTickets.com. It's sports, it's concerts, it's comedy shows, it's Broadway shows, it's festivals, it's anything you want to attend in person. They've got seats waiting for you right now at CENTEXTickets.com. And you know what? Quick shout out to Sue Patrick as well. Rocking my Sue Patrick lid. We're on international waters. It doesn't matter. Still repping my Sue Patrick gear here on this Alaskan cruise. If you're looking to upgrade your Longhorn wardrobe, go see our friends at Sue Patrick. 50 years of serving Central Texas right there on Burnett Road. Shop in store. They've got free parking, tons of free parking. You can also shop online at SuePatrick.com. You can get free shipping on online orders over $59. Again, the best selection, the Texas gear, the hats, the jerseys, the shirts, the polos, the accessories, the collectibles, whatever you need to upgrade your burnt orange fandom, they've got you covered. Sue Patrick or SuePatrick.com. All right, Texas Longhorns insider Chip Brown of Horns 24/7 filling in for the Buck today. See, Breezy, you were talking about Will Muschamp's defense and some of the changes that we expect to see on that side of the football this year. I want to ask about 3 positions here, and I'll go one by one. These are my biggest concerns, and maybe concerns is too strong. Question marks may be a little better because I'm not panicking about these spots, but I think these might be the least proven spots on the Longhorn defense just 3 weeks away from the start of the season. And we'll start up front with the edge opposite of Colin Simmons. No question about Colin Simmons. Everyone knows how good he is. I think he's the best defensive player in college football. Can't wait to see how Will Muschamp uses him. But the other edge position, it seems like Lance Jackson is the projected starter former 5-star going into year 2. You've got some bodies there, but obviously Ethan Burke is off to the NFL, so you lose kind of your proven senior stable piece on the other side of the defensive line. What are you hearing about Lance Jackson and just that edge room in general, and what's your confidence level that Texas is going to have some difference makers opposite of Colin Simmons up front?
Yeah, I mean, Lance Jackson is the guy that I think the coaches want to take control because they invested in him last year, not just, financially, but he played more snaps as a freshman than any other freshman on the team, on the defense. He played more snaps than Cade Phillips, who is also a projected starter at corner. So, but, Zena Umazulu is a guy he's going to play a lot. They're going to rotate those guys. And then, Jamarian Carlton, freshman who's, a big body, 279 as a freshman. And Alan Clark, the defensive ends coach, real excited about Jamarian Carlton and Richard Wesley, who will be backing up Colin Simmons. But I think that is a legitimate question mark because I thought Ethan Burke was underappreciated because he was the best run defender on the team last year.
Yep.
And nothing got by him. I mean, when he was out there, there was no getting around his corner. He set the edge. He forced things back inside, or he made the play himself. And that's why he's still in camp with the Baltimore Ravens as an undrafted free agent. And so, that's teams are going to run at that position. They're going to run at Lance Jackson. They're going to run at Zena Umazulu until they see that those guys can get off blocks, set the edge, and stuff the run. And then if they don't, watch out for, Justice Terry. They might move him, back out there. If they feel like they've got answers on the interior, because I think Justice Terry's starting to show them what kind of a twitchy monster he can be when he's healthy. And he got a big, the coaches said, dude, we need you to stay healthy. They said same thing to Jonah Williams. They said the same thing to Kobe Black, who had a groin injury and an ankle injury last year and was never quite right. Like he, may or may not have or should not have played against Florida because he was still, coming off of a groin injury. He ended up getting lit up in that game, and then they sat him and let him recover for a while. He came back kind of by accident. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. There were some, injuries in front of Kobe Black, but he ends up playing against A&M and gets a huge interception in that game. Yep. And some big hits. So those three guys, Justice Terry, Jonah Williams, Kobe Black, coaches, Torrey Becton, they're like, look, you got to get in. You got to do extra. You're going to have to, follow the Jordan Whittington plan because we need you to stay healthy. So they're doing it. And I think they're going to have answers. I think they're going to have answers at that strong side defensive end position because it doesn't scare me if it's Justice Terry. I mean, that kid played 7 snaps against Georgia, had 4 tackles and 1.5 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
Like if you want to see a kid from Georgia turn it on, that's what that looked like. And so if that's what you can get from Justice Terry on a snap in, snap out basis, and that's what his teammates, the first thing they talk about with him is his motor and how strong he is and how twitchy and explosive he is. I'm really excited to see Justice Terry this year because I know he's like, it's time, he's a 5-star guy and he's got talent. So
yeah, you think the hype is real? I mean, it feels like he's been maybe the story of fall camp so far. Obviously, everyone wants to talk about Arch and Cam Coleman, the established stars, but in terms of breakout stars, it feels like Justice Terry has kind of emerged amongst a crowded group.
Yeah, and he's proving himself to Will Muschamp right now because he had a shoulder injury that kept him out a lot of the spring, just like Anthony Smith. And so those guys are having to prove themselves to a new coordinator. And all that practice time they had under PK, you got to start over. You got to take your game to the next level. You got to prove yourself to Will Muschamp, because Muschamp, once you prove yourself to Will Muschamp, you're set. I've talked to all the former players who were at Texas with him, like Henry Melton and Emmanuel Acho and some of the defensive backs, and they all talked about, once you show that you can be counted on, he adds more to your plate. And that's something that he connected with Colin Simmons early on. And so he said, listen, I'm going to put a lot more on your plate. We're going to move you around. And Colin Simmons is like, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Make it hard. Make it hard for people to find me.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, Colin Simmons is so good. You can game plan to stop him, and he's still going to wreck games. But now, if you're moving him around and opposing offenses have no idea where he's going to be on any single snap, that makes him really, really dangerous. So that's up front. And you brought up one of the question marks that I have. It's Cade Phillips, right? I mean, 5-star, took over for a senior, Jalen Gilbo, towards the end of last year as a starting corner opposite of Manny Muhammad. Played pretty well down the stretch, but we are talking about a true sophomore with like 2.5 career starts under his belt. The whole cornerback room is completely different. Bo Masco, I think, has done everything right. The transfer from Rutgers, it feels like he's the top guy just based on reporting to this point. But Cade Phillips, number 2 corner, he's obviously going to see some great receivers starting week 2 against Ohio State. What's your confidence level, and what are you hearing about the year 2 corner?
Cade Phillips is Mark Orfe, the cornerbacks coach, called him a treat because, first of all, he's got a 6'6" wingspan. And when you look at him, sitting out there lined up, he looks like an NFL corner because his arm length is so incredible. He's got the turn, he's got the burn, he's got hips, he's got feet. And he got better in games last year. Like, take the Michigan game, the Citrus Bowl. They go at him on a wide receiver screen. He doesn't get off his block. He gets beat. Touchdown. They run that same play later. He's off his block. He drops it for a 4-yard loss. Like, he doesn't make the same mistake twice. He's gotten stronger. I think he's a breakout guy this year. I think he ends up as the best corner on this team this year. And Bo Masco is a junkyard dog. He is going to give you everything he's got. He's a thicker guy. He's not very tall, but he gets into position and he makes things hard, and he peels off and comes downhill in the run game, which is what Texas needs. That's, Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron was going to peel off and come downhill in the run game. And that's a big part of the reason the run defense was so good in 23 and 24.
Yeah.
And so, I think Cade Phillips is a guy everyone should be really excited about because nothing bothers him. If he gets beat, he comes back and he is more determined to make the play than ever. And that's also a trait that Samari Matthews has, which I'm very intrigued by Samari Matthews. I think he's a guy who's on the ascend. And so he'll be a special teams guy this year. But Samari Matthews, number 11 in your playbook.
Is he healthy? It seems like early on in camp he was missing some time. Is he back to where
he's back.
Good.
He's back. He was one of the cramping guys. Little hammy, which is always tricky.
Yep.
You gotta make sure that that those are taken care of because they can ruin your whole season. But yeah, I think Cade Phillips is a guy that everyone's going to be talking about this year.
I love it. And then last but not least, this is one you wrote about on your Insider piece yesterday. I've got questions at safety, and I'll use your verbiage from your article. Is there a difference maker at safety alongside Jelani McDonald? There's talent. They've recruited well, but no real proven commodities, considering post-ACL Derek Williams Jr. What's your answer to that question? Is there a difference maker in the back end of the Texas defense outside of Jelani McDonald?
Well, the big revelation over the offseason was moving Kobe Black to safety.
Yeah.
And that's gone well. I put up some notes over at horns247.com from yesterday's practice. Apparently, it was Kobe Black and Derek Williams rotating with the ones alongside Jelani McDonald. So Jelani McDonald is the leader. He's the captain, the quarterback of the secondary, the guy making the calls. And yesterday it was Kobe Black and Derek Williams working alongside of him with the first team defense. You've got Xavier Filsaime, but he's not as big as Will Muschamp would like. It's amazing how many 6'2" safeties Texas has. Kobe Black, Derek Williams, Jonah Williams, Zalis Hicks. These guys are all at least 6'2". Of course, Jelani McDonald, 6'2", 200. So, Kobe's a guy who's obviously got the great length. He's got, good footwork. And I think him being able to see the whole defense has helped him a lot. Plus, he was high school teammates with Jelani McDonald at Waco Connolly.
Yeah.
They were in the secondary together. They've been in wars together. And they both got moved to safety when they needed. So there's that position versatility there. And Kobe Black is on a mission. I hope it works for him because, they slow played him. He almost got in the portal. And he wanted to come back, and it wasn't about money. And they finally, figured out their cap and everything. And so Kobe's back, and he's on a mission. And so that's what you want. He knows time's ticking here, and he knows that this is a special team, or should be a special team. So I think you're going to have a good rotation through there. And ideally, if Jonah Williams keeps coming, ideally he's in this rotation because he went to Galveston Ball. Casey Hampton, who I think is probably the best football player I've ever covered at Texas. My God, he led the team in tackles from the defensive tackle position 2 straight years.
That's absurd.
And won 2 Super Bowls and was the absolute anchor of the Steelers' defensive line on 2 Super Bowl teams.
Should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way.
Should be in the College Hall of Fame, the Pro Hall of Fame. And
Yep.
He's so quiet and humble. I worry that he's not, top of mind enough. But Casey told me, Chip, this dude is the truth as a football player. Like, sees the game, processes, hits, does it all. And we know he's a special talent in baseball, batting .327 as a freshman, struggled to stay healthy. And then last year he, busts up his shoulder diving for a ball in the outfield. But that injury allowed him to really focus in on football. So he's learning the defense. I think he's getting more comfortable with it. He's working some with the second team, and that's good because the next step is obviously getting reps with the ones, and we'll see. But I think you've certainly got talent.
Yeah.
Experienced talent back there. And one of those guys should pop.
It feels like Derek Williams Jr. is the leader in the clubhouse, right? He's the guy getting the majority of the reps with the ones right now. I know you mentioned some of the other names, and like you said, these guys are going to rotate. But do you expect it to be Jelani McDonald and Derek Williams Jr. as the starting safeties 3 weeks from tomorrow?
It wouldn't surprise me because, as you said, Derek Williams, he's made big plays in big games. I mean, the game he got hurt in, he tore up his knee against Oklahoma. He'd forced a fumble already in that game. So
Yeah.
he's a guy who, I think is feeling the love. And Will Muschamp is really spending a lot of time with the safeties. Like, he played safety as a walk-on at Georgia, and he's got Blake Gideon, over the secondary, but Will Muschamp knows that that's an area of concern. And he's back there making sure that these guys know what they're doing. And at nickel too, one of the practices we got to see, Muschamp. So the defensive back is facing the receiver. Muschamp is behind the defensive back, signaling to the receiver which way he wants him to go, so that Muschamp can see how the defensive back breaks down and handles the move by the receiver. And he was all up in people when they took the wrong step. And so, he, like, Bo Masco took a wrong step and he was surprisingly quiet. He was like, "What are you doing? Like you know better than this." And then poor Wardell Mack takes the wrong step and Muschamp's like, "What the are you doing?
Oh,
Get this
man.
effing right."
Got to make an example out of somebody, huh? Wardell Mack was that guy.
Wardell Mack.
And
they've looked at Warren Roberson some at nickel. Grayson Littleton is the man.
Yeah.
But Grayson Littleton can play outside. They've got options. Warren Roberson, one of the fastest guys on the team, looked good against Michigan in the time that he got, because Kobe Black left that game with a concussion. So, I think, they've got guys and they've got experienced guys. I know I say Warren Roberson, and most Texas fans kind of cringe because they think of the penalties on special teams, which have been too many.
Oh, yeah.
But, man, he's one of their best man defenders.
Did have a couple of penalties on defense last year and a very limited amount of snaps too. So that's something he's got to clean up here, I think.
Don't grab jersey. Don't, trust your speed. You're right next to him. You don't need to touch him.
No doubt. Yeah, kind of following up on that, Chip, and I hate that I'm about to reference a Tom Herman line here, but here we go. You don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Maybe I'm foolishly weary about this, but all this talk about cross-training all of these secondary pieces, it's, Phil Smee working at star and safety. You've got Masco working at corner and star. You've got like all of these guys. It's nice to have options. I'm willing to acknowledge that, but does Texas need to be doing that, or can they just not find, like, okay, here's a guy, here's where he's best at, let's leave him there. Let's just find guys who are best at one spot and trot them out there as often as we can.
I think they want them to know every role in the secondary and how they fit. How they fit in man, how they fit in quarters, how they fit in, cover 2, cover 3, cover 1, just so that everybody is on the same page. And when you've got this much experience, I think you can do that. You're doing it with guys like Derek Williams, with Warren Roberson, who've been in the program, 2, 3, 4 years. You're not doing that with Cade Phillips. Cade Phillips is at one position. He's getting that down, and they want him to be that, like you said, the master of one. And so, I think they're doing it because they got guys who are smart enough and have been in the defense enough that they can learn the other roles. And if necessary, you don't want an injury to derail your season.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to have options if something happens.
Yeah.
But Jelani McDonald is the most valuable. He'd be the hardest to replace.
No doubt. No doubt. Yep. Chip Brown, Horns 24/7, filling in for the Buck on a Friday show. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what this secondary looks like, Chip, because it felt like last year, whenever somebody went down, whether it was Manny Muhammad against Florida or Jelani McDonald or Michael Taft, it just felt like it all fell apart.
Yeah.
So the idea of, one injury not derailing a season like it kind of felt like it did at times last year, I totally understand that. They have to have more depth there in the secondary than they did a year ago. And I think that's a big part of the reason why both Pete Kwiatkowski and Dwayne Akina are no longer here because they didn't have enough back there in the secondary.
Well, and they disagreed about what coverages to run once like Taft went down. And that became a problem because it was, Dwayne Akina saying we should be running this, Johnny Nansen saying, I don't know, Pete Kwiatkowski, who's a defensive line guy, kind of like, and that's why Steve Sarkisian said, I don't want to have to be on the headset babysitting. I want one guy over there who's going to be a voice of thunder who says, we're running quarters, guys, here we go, and not let it, and Dwayne Akina is super talented. He's a great coach, but he was the new guy. And so, he has his own ideas. It just needed to be cleaned up. And so Will Muschamp comes in, he's going to be calling it, and that's going to be that.
Yeah. Sounds like too many cooks in the kitchen at times last year for Texas, and now you know who the chef is this time around. I guess one last question on the defensive side of the ball.
Real quick,
yeah.
BK. PK's best defenses at Washington, he had an established secondary guy in Jimmy Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And they worked so well together to the point where Jimmy Lake was starting to get offers, as a defensive coordinator. And Pete Kwiatkowski said he can be called the defensive coordinator. I'll take a step back. It didn't go so well after that, but
right.
It was that was always a little bit of PK's blind spot, was what coverage is and when, because he's a defensive line guy. That's the position that he coached. So he needed a really good guy in the secondary. And with Will Muschamp and Blake Gideon having worked together, they've got, and Orfe, Mark Orfe was at South Carolina with Will Muschamp. So it feels like Muschamp got to pick some of his guys when he did pick Blake Gideon, but Orfe was already on the staff. It just worked out really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In your eyes, kind of along those lines, and maybe you just answered this question, but what's the biggest difference you expect to see from Will Muschamp's defense versus what we've seen the last 5 years from PK?
The pressure through the A gap, because that's a run blitz, and it drives teams crazy. It drove Texas crazy. Kirby Smart, and Glenn Schumann used that double A gap pressure, and they used the double A gap pressure to kind of ad nauseum in the win in Austin. 2 years ago. And then, at times in last year's game, Texas was so, in that game, and it doesn't translate because it was 35-10, but like I was in Athens for that game last year, and Texas ran the ball on the opening drive. They ran the ball. They averaged 5 yards a carry. They were in rhythm. And Sarkisian, there were a couple of, I don't know, it was weird. They went away from the run, and then receivers were dropping the football, and it was still a one possession game going into the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But then Kirby outcoached Sarkisian, special teams, just like the fake punt in the SEC championship game that turned into a 9-minute drive for Georgia, in a game that Texas lost in overtime. Georgia with some special teams trickery.
Yeah.
And Texas wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, glad we don't have to see them in the regular season this year. But it feels like if Texas is going to win its first SEC title, they're going to have to get by Georgia in Atlanta, considering, the Dogs are the favorite to win the league, and they've also been in that game 5 years in a row. So
8 of the last 9.
Just insane what they've built there in Athens, and that's what Texas is obviously trying to replicate in this conference. All right, we'll get back into the Texas Longhorns conversation. We'll flip to the offensive side of the football. I want to get Chip's thoughts on the offensive line, obviously Arch Manning's progression as well, and then towards the end of the show, we'll ask Chip about his SEC preseason ballot, how he kind of views this conference here in 2026. Chip, I'm going to give you the floor for the first sponsor shout out right now because you're rocking a Cover 3 lid. And every time Bucky and I talk to you, typically on Wednesdays, our Chop It Up with Chip conversations are brought to you by Cover 3. So I know that's one of your favorite hangout spots in Austin. Tell the great people who are tuning in about the greatness of Cover 3.
Yeah, Cover 3. I mean, started by two guys who grew up in Austin with a dream of having, high-end food in a place where you can watch all your favorite teams. And that's what Cover 3 is. They opened up in 2008. That was not a great year for the economy. And I remember, I was with the guys when they put the horseshoe in, right under the opening. You always turn the horseshoe back in toward the restaurant, keep all the good luck in. And I said, don't worry, keep serving lunch. You're going to be fine because there's no other restaurant like it. And it's high-end food. I mean, I love the Sean Adams prime rib sandwich. That is a great meal with the Parmesan fries. The brick chicken and mac and cheese is a favorite because I usually have some leftovers and that heats up really well. And you can catch my kid in there, Tiger Brown. He's just gotten his real estate license. So hopefully he's off to that world, but he's been working at Cover 3 until he could get his real estate license completed. And it's just a great vibe and great place to watch your favorite teams and enjoy high-end food and go get the Sean Adams prime rib sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
It's to die for. I get it with the au jus and the horseradish sauce.
Oh, you're doubling up, huh?
Oh yeah. Mix it up, baby.
Yeah, those Parmesan fries are next level right there. Some people skimp on the fries a little bit, right? They focus so much on the sandwich or the burger, which Cover 3 does too, but then they're like, we'll just throw in some frozen fries that we'll toss in the oven. That's not what Cover 3 is all about. So I love it. Chip loves it. Go see Tiger Brown, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Cover 3, 2 Austin area locations. Love it. Also love AV Consultations. I know Chip's been a proud customer of Tom McKay a couple of times in his life, as have I. And the service of audiovisual. So Chip, I just moved in with my girlfriend. I don't know if I've told you that personally. And literally we moved in on Saturday and left for Vancouver on Tuesday at like 6 a.m. So quick turnaround. But the beauty of Tom McKay and AV Consultations is she left him a key. They went into my place. They hooked up all the TVs and the sound bars. So by the time I get back, I don't have to worry about that. Like that's what they do. And you could trust them in your home. You want to be there, that's fine. You can obviously be there, but they'll get all the work done. They'll leave your place nice and tidy. They'll clean up after themselves. And the quality of work is second to none. So the TVs are hooked up. The surround sound's hooked up. We're ready to roll. And we are just over 3 weeks away from the start of Texas football season. So you want to make sure you've got your home TV setup done. Reach out to the pros at Audiovisual Consultations. Since 1988, they've been hooking up Central Texans. Chip, Bucky, myself, Rodney, all the guys that you see on this network and on this show, all hooked up by Tom McKay and his great crew. Just reach out to him. Again, 512-255-8678. Find out more online at avconsultations.com.
Love it.
Yes, indeed. And also a quick shout out to our friends at the Altstadt Brewery. The best beer that you could find in Central Texas is Altstadt Beer. Been scavenging this ship. Have not seen any Altstadt on board, but we'll try to find a way to get some over to Alaska. But love the Altstadt. When I get back home, that's the first thing I'm going to do is crack open an ice cold Altstadt beer. Of course, for your tailgates, for your watch parties, for all of your football enjoying, you need a great beer all season long. Altstadt is my choice. Should be yours as well. Easy to find, available wherever you buy your beer. Tons of different brews. Something for every beer drinker out there. You want to be the life of the tailgate party? Show up with a six-pack, maybe a couple of six-packs of Altstadt. Everyone's going to love you, and you'll be invited back every single time. The weekend is upon us. Whatever you have going on this weekend, enjoy your Altstadt responsibly. It is the official beer of BK. It should be the official beer of you as well. It's Altstadt Beer. No impurities, no regrets. All right. Chip Brown of horns247.com. joining me today, filling in for the Buck on a Friday show. Chip, we spent the majority of the first hour talking about the Texas defense, but kind of want to flip things over to the offensive side of the football. And you did bring up the offensive line earlier, and I think that's every Texas fan's biggest question mark going into this season because of the way that group looked last year and just how it kind of derailed the entire season. That wasn't the only problem spot for the Longhorns in 2025, but it was a big problem spot for the Longhorns in 2025. Your thoughts on the offensive line? I know the pads just started coming on within the last couple of days, so not a ton there yet in terms of training camp, but how you feeling about that group? And I guess maybe a more specific question, and then I want to get your broad thoughts. Lawrence Seymour, the transfer from Western Kentucky, didn't get here till the summer. Seems like I saw you report on this. He's starting to get more reps with the first team offense. How's he coming along, and can he be that answer that Texas could not find at the left guard spot in 2025?
Yeah, it was interesting because when we went out for the the media viewing periods in the first couple days of training camp, you look at the offensive linemen and it was like Sesame Street. Which one does not belong? Because Lawrence Seymour is a squatty little guy. He might be 6'2". I doubt it. Is probably closer to 6 feet. And you're like, oh boy, standing next to these giants like Brandon Baker and Trevor Gooseby. And then sure enough, he was working with the third team because he got here late, blah, blah, blah. Jaden Chapman and Dylan Sikorsky were working ahead of him. Well, yeah, in my practice notes from yesterday, Lawrence Seymour got most all the reps with the first team at left guard. And so what Lawrence Seymour does is he gets under people. And like our man Dan Neal, look, it's okay to be short as long as you got strength and leverage. And Dan Neal was never the biggest guy, All-American offensive lineman, won 2 Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos. He had to block guys like Sam Adams at Texas A&M, and then with the Ravens when Dan was with the Broncos. But Lawrence Seymour gets under guys, and so he's starting to assert himself in this offensive line. And the biggest difference, BK, is the experience. Yeah. Because, you bring in Melvin Siani, who's a senior, who the pro scouts love because he's got really good length, good feet, really good pass protector, needs to get a little lower in the run game. And then, Connor Robertson picked up a lot of experience last year, started the last 5 games, started, I think, 8 games total. In his time. And then, obviously Trevor Gooseby and Brandon Baker. Brandon Baker was a newbie last year. Mm-hmm. and showed you that with all of his penalties, 12. And now we talked to him yesterday. He's settled down. He knows what he's doing. Guard is an interesting position for him because Brandon Baker has really good feet. He's a good pass blocker at tackle. He's good out in space, but struggled to kind of get the right fit in the run game and square guys up and knock them back. And that's where he's really focused right now at guard, because you've got to square up your guy at guard. Otherwise you have no interior run game. And that was the problem last year for Texas.
Oh yeah.
No interior run game. It's all you need to say is Texas has played Georgia 3 times. They've averaged 27 yards rushing and given up 16 sacks in those 3 games. That's why everyone's picking Georgia over Texas. Until Texas shows they can bully people and run the football, it's going to be hard for people to pick Texas, unless, they've just got a magician at quarterback slinging it, kind of what Ty Simpson did for Alabama last year.
Yeah.
Alabama couldn't run the ball. and they won a playoff game. And Alabama fans are like, we suck. You went to the playoffs and you won a playoff game on the road. But it was a lot because Ty Simpson was able to bail them out in tight situations. And, Quinn Ewers was able to do that at times for Texas. And that's where everyone wants to see, Arch Manning take the next step. But obviously that's big. And the offensive line has more experience, a lot more. 3,000 more snaps than the line that started last season. That's got to matter. And getting Cole Hudson back, Cole Hudson is the most experienced by snaps, 1,959 snaps he's played. And that's really good depth. They'll rotate him in. He'll probably rotate in at left and right guard, try to give some guys a breather in September. And so I think the offensive line will be better. How much better is the question. And when you combine this offensive line with these running backs and their ability to, like, go back and watch how many times, Quintravian Wisner was having to dodge a guy in the backfield last year. These guys are better equipped to do it. Nothing against Quintravian Wisner, who was huge for Texas in big wins over Oklahoma and A&M the last 2 years. Huge.
Yeah.
And could catch the football and was a leader, and every day at practice was picking guys up, and that all will be missed. But when it comes to making something out of nothing as a running back, Texas went and paid heavily to make sure that they had guys who could make something out of nothing just in case they were having issues on the offensive line. So I think the offensive line is going to be better. I just don't know how much better.
Yeah, that's the question everyone's trying to get answered. And, you wonder if Texas can make a legitimate run at a national championship with just an average offensive line. They can't do it with the offensive line they had last year, but do you truly need an elite offensive line to win it all? Or does this team maybe have enough talent at the skill positions and obviously with Arch Manning at quarterback to where they can overcome perhaps some deficiencies up front? And of course, people are going to be critical of Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood if the offensive line isn't where it needs to be. They tried. They went after a couple of Michigan guys in the portal. They went after a few guys from other schools who just decided to ultimately return to where they were. Now, most people are like, show me the baby. I don't care about the labor. But Texas, it felt like they hit chip on just about every other portal position that they went after, except for the offensive line. So they got Lawrence Seymour late, but they've kind of had to scramble. Obviously, the Cole Hudson news is a positive development, but I don't even know if they're super sure about their offensive line. That almost, we talked about it at the start of the show. They're running the football so much. Stark's putting such an emphasis on physicality and toughness. It felt like he used those words 100 times in his availability this week. It's almost like they're not so sure about their offensive line, and they're doing whatever they can to scramble to make sure that group is good enough in the fall.
Yeah, for sure. Because Sarkisian absolutely believes in the run. I mean, that the fact that he's had a 1,000-yard rusher so many times tells you that. Like, this guy's committed to the run. And last year it was so bad that he gave up on the run in several games. And that cannot happen, because for Texas to be at its best, they have to have the threat of play action. They have to have the ability to keep the defense on edge. Now, here's the big question. We know Arch can run. And he was their second leading rusher last year. So how much do you rely on that? Do you just try to use him in the red zone? Do you just try to use him, in short yardage situations? Hopefully not, because that's kind of when everyone's expecting that. Mm-hmm. But the threat of Arch running needs to be a factor for this team's running game. I mean, there's a reason that Texas ran for 200 plus yards in its last two games after being pathetic. It was because Arch broke loose. Arch had a 35-yard touchdown against A&M. Arch had a 60-yarder and a 23-yarder against Michigan. the quarterback run game became a big factor for Texas. And I think you're going to have to use him in some situations. And sometimes he's just going to have to make a play on his own. But if there's so much to be concerned about, then that plays into Texas's favor, because the defense isn't going to know whether to, drop 8, bring 8. If Sarkisian and Arch are in rhythm, that's bad news for the defense, because then they don't know what's coming. The running game is working enough, and that's what I expect to see this year, because you got a bunch of veteran guys who are hungry. Cam Coleman wants to win.
Yeah.
Mike Masunis wants to win. Raleigh Brown, Hollywood Smothers, Raheem Biles on defense. Like, they want to win. And part of their selection process in picking a school to transfer was, where do I have the best chance to win? And that's important, because you got to have guys who are fed up with finishing short. They have to have a determination about them that is, bigger than, it takes on a life of its own, that the whole team feels it in the locker room every time they show up for practice, that they're playing for something bigger than that week's win. And I think this team has that, but we'll see. I mean, we're going to know in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, Steve Sarkisian's talked about the culture work all off season long, and how he started doing that a lot earlier this time around than he did last year. Obviously, with nearly 50 newcomers on the roster, it's important to make sure those guys are all on the same page and rowing the boat in the right direction. But
and those culture Wednesdays matter.
Okay.
Like, that stuff, I know it sounds frou-frou and new agey, but I'll never forget, Texas, I'll always give credit to Mac Brown for hiring really good coaches, putting really good coaches on staff. And he brought in Dick Tomey for 1 year in 2004. And Tomey did the same thing. He was considered one of the best team builders. And part of it was because he did this stuff he'd have the position rooms meet with their position coach and tell their life stories. And so you'd hear about how, one player lost his parents, in an accident, or, how that position coach went through a divorce that was really painful, and they get to know each other. And that stuff matters. Like, that's how you build a bond and start to play for the guy next to you, because you know what that guy's been through, what this means to him. And it's not you in your own helmet and pads saying it's 100 degrees, man. I'm ready to get a break. And so I give Steve Sarkisian a lot of credit, because he has a powerful story, and he starts it off. He talks about how he lost everything, all self-inflicted. And I think the players are like, oh, wow. And then it makes them vulnerable. They open up, and then they do come together. And so I give Steve Sarkisian a lot of credit for that, because I think that stuff matters.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it does. But, clearly a point of emphasis for Sark this offseason. And, he's talked about it a lot. So you need that to get over the hump. There's a lot of really, really good teams in college football this season. So maybe that's the thing that separates Texas from the rest. Chip Brown, horns247.com, joining us. Well, you brought up the tight ends a little bit, Chip, or at least you brought up Michael Masunis' name for a bit. And I want to ask you about that here, because that's another position where we just don't really have an answer right now. Maybe one of the more intriguing battles going on in fall camp is at tight end. And you've got Masunis in for Michigan State. I know you're a big Spitzer Shannon guy, right? 6'7", 260 pounds. He's been with the program for 3 years.
Can he get a target?
Can he get a target, right? Has yet to catch a ball in his Texas time, has yet to be targeted in his Texas tenure. You've got Nick Townsend and Amari Winston going into year 2. Bucky and I talk about this a lot. The Bucks kind of at the standpoint of, like, just we don't need a tight end. There's too many good receivers. Don't be wasting spots on the field with the tight end if they are not good enough. I don't think that's how Steve Sarkisian's going to operate, because we've got enough of a sample size to know how much he loves the tight end position. Hell, he said on the record that he believes that's the second most important position in his offense behind quarterback. So, Texas has had a tight end drafted in 3 straight drafts. Is there somebody or somebodies that you think can be difference makers there, or are there going to be a lot of Longhorn fans yelling at their TV wondering why there's a tight end on the field instead of an extra really talented wide receiver or running back?
Well, I think they have different guys who do different things. If you're going to play 11 personnel, 1 back, 1 tight end, it's probably going to be Michael Masunis, because he probably gives you the best inline guy and receiver. And Spencer Shannon they're throwing him the football in practice and he's catching it. So I think you could see those two rotate. I think Nick Townsend is your second tight end in 12 personnel. And so, he'll be he should be the move guy, and they like him a lot, and he's beefed up. He's a great athlete, good hands. But they love Amari Winston, and Amari Winston is an H-back. I mean, he's 6'1", 248. He will knock you out. Great hands, size 10-inch hands, catches everything, but he's physical. And I think they want to include him in some packages. And so I think they'll narrow it down. They'll see who's making the most of their reps, and they'll say, okay, this is our best package, and we're going with this the majority of the time. But I think they feel good about Amari Winston, because he's, like I said, he's tough, he's physical, he likes contact, he'll block, and he catches everything, and he led the team in yards per catch last year. I know it was 47 yards. One of those catches was a 33-yarder, but he can get it done. So I think you're going to have, different guys doing different things, different packages, but I think you'll see them all.
If Amari Winston was like 6'4", 6'5", would he be the best tight end on this team by far? Like, is that what's holding him back? The fact that he's a bit of a squatty body, if you will?
And that shouldn't be the case, because we've seen guys his size be All-Americans at tight end because they want it so bad and they're so smart. And so it's going to be interesting to see, because he is not Steve Sarkisian's typical tight end. All of Sarkisian's tight ends are 6'4", 6'5", or bigger, 250, and are going to be able to get their block and then go out and make the catch. And Gunnar Helm, perfect example, record setter. And it helped that Gunnar Helm and Quinn Ewers had been in practice together. And that's what you have with Arch Manning and Amari Winston and Nick Townsend. I mean, Arch has been their guy. And so I think he's got good rapport, but I think Spencer Shannon is going to get a target this year.
Somehow that's a bold prediction. Somehow the one target for a guy is a hugely bold prediction. I hope you're right. And it's interesting because, like, Nick Townsend, and I think Spencer Shannon fits the mold. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I know Nick Townsend and Amari Winston definitely do. These guys are Steve Sarkisian recruits. Yep. Like Tavion Sanders and Gunnar Helm were Tom Herman guys. Obviously, they stayed long enough to be coached by Steve Sarkisian, but those weren't guys Sark really went after. They were just here what he got here, so he had the luxury of coaching them. Obviously, last year he went to the portal and brought in Jack Endries, but in terms of like high school recruits with him and Jeff Banks, I'd like to see, nothing against Michael Masunis. I'd love for him to make a play too. It's clearly there's a reason Steve Sarkisian went after him. He was one of the first guys that the Longhorns brought in out of the portal, but it'd be nice to see one of these Jeff Banks recruits turn into something a little special, because it feels like Texas has recruited very well at other positions. Tight end is the one in the Sark era where we haven't quite seen a recruit turn into something truly special.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think they love Nick Townsend. And you could see, who knows with the 5-for-5, and I haven't done all the math. Masuna's had some medical stuff, so he's probably got another year of eligibility if he really wants it. Spencer Shannon, he redshirted, so he's probably got another year if he really wants it. And we'll see, because this is going to be a prove it year at that position.
Oh yeah,
kind of like Cade Phillips at corner. Is he the guy? Is he special? And if they think Nick Townsend is special, they'll try to find ways to get him the football and let him prove that he's special. If it's Amari Winston, they'll find ways to get him the ball and let him prove that he's the guy we need to be building stuff around going into next year. So right now, they like all of them. So there's stuff in the offense for all of them. But as we know, just like that receiver rotation, BK, you got 9 receivers in that room, 7 of whom could be starting at most any other school. 7. And how on earth is Steve Sarkisian going to rotate that position? Well, he will early. And when they play Ohio State, you'll know who they really trust.
Yeah, that's going to be a fascinating watch. That's the deepest position room on this team, in my opinion, by far. And, I know they lost a couple of guys to the portal, but they obviously brought some in, and some of the talent that they were able to retain, it's just ridiculous. And Sark and Chris Jackson have kept a pretty tight rotation to this point in their Texas career. So how do they feed all of those bodies? It's an embarrassment of riches. It's a first world problem, crying from a yacht, as Steve Sarkisian would say. But, yeah, man, there are pass catchers galore on this team. And to that point, it's why folks are a little hesitant about the tight ends, because there are so many good receivers on this team where you feel like they can make a difference in the passing game. Obviously, they'll run in the football, having those bigger bodies on the line of scrimmage, never a bad thing. But, yeah, how Sark utilizes his personnel, obviously he's going to be held accountable and judged critically for the way he does so. But he's got more options, Chip, than I think he's had in his 6 years here for sure.
Well, Khalil Lockett is having one of the best camps of anyone. He's catching everything, and he's getting behind the defense. He's long. He's fast. He's playing with a lot of.
He was the number 2 wide receiver in the country last year. Like, it's almost like he's a forgotten 5-star on this team. Like, he's so buried on the depth chart because of the guys that they have. It's crazy that we're trying to force a former 5-star to get some playing time, but I don't know where he's going to fit, despite what you're saying, Chip.
Right. Well, he's. If you're going to lose Ryan Wingo and Cam Coleman to the draft, then Khalil Lockett is your next big outside receiver. But they have a guy named Sterling Burkhalter who probably had the best spring of anyone outside of Cam Coleman, who's played in this offense, knows it, knows where to be, makes third down catches. Like, they can survive. If something happens to Wingo and, God forbid, even Cam Coleman, they can survive. Now, I think Sterling Burkhalter is a little more of a guy you would trust under the bright lights. But Khalil Lockett, that was a great catch he had against Michigan. Stride for stride, defenders right there. And that really jump-started him. And he got banged up in spring, came back. He's electric. So, but obviously the slot is so fascinating because you got Emmett Mosley, who's one of the best route runners on the team, along with Dalen McCutcheon, who's there, and Jermaine Bishop Jr. And I know they want to get some reps for Jermaine Bishop Jr. because they know how talented he is, and they got to keep him. They got to keep him connected.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose that guy. You don't want to get them all trained up and then, have them, take off. So
right.
There's be a lot of rotations, mindset stuff about, okay, we need this to win and we need this for the future.
Yeah, it's a tough predicament. Again, first world problem, but some of your backup receivers are so good, you feel like you got to find a way to get them on the field. And like you said, you want to make sure you're keeping everybody happy so nobody leaves because of playing time. But also, when you put one of those guys on the field, you're taking off a Cam Coleman or a Ryan Wingo or an Emmett Mosley, who I think all three of those guys are good enough to be number one wide receivers at a number of Power 4 schools across college football. So, yeah, it's crazy what they have put together in that room, and that's definitely a strength of this football team. You brought up Jermaine Bishop, Chip, and I guess I'll turn this into a freshman question. Again, it's nice. Like, I think of Xavier Worthy. I'll just use him as an example because we're talking about wide receiver right now. You know, when Sark got here, they flipped Xavier Worthy from Michigan sort of at the last minute. They didn't have a choice. They had to play him. They didn't have any other options at wide receiver, and obviously he was very good too. But nowadays, like, Texas is bringing in top 10 class after top 10 class. But, okay, Derek Cooper, everyone's talking about him. Well, you've got Hollywood Smothers and Raleigh Brown ahead of him. Wide receiver with Jermaine Bishop. Well, you've got all of these guys ahead of him. Richard Wesley at edge. You've got all of these. Like, which of these freshmen, I know on special teams a lot of these guys are going to contribute, but are there freshmen that you think will have legitimate roles on this team on offense or defense versus just maybe they get a touch or two a game?
I think you're going to have – I'll start on the defense.
Okay.
I think Richard Wesley's going to play. I think he's going to play. When Colin Simmons needs a blow, you're going to see 99 come in there. And this is a kid who will turn 18 on September 8th. And he is 254 pounds and has great feel for the game. I mean, this is a guy, he's a disruptor. And Steve Sarkisian listed him as one of the Havoc players in the spring, along with guys like Colin Simmons and Raheem Biles. And so I think Richard Wesley, number 99, is a guy you got to, keep your eye on. And then I think Cozy Opala at the strong side defensive or strong side linebacker position, kind of backing up Brad Spence, number 18. He's a tough physical guy, comes downhill, rushes the passer. They love Tyler Atkinson and Rocky Cummings. The question is, which one of those guys or both gets into the rotation? Because if you look at last year, you had Anthony Hill, Leonga Lafau, Ty Anthony Smith, and Trey Moore. All those guys played more than 400 snaps. Anthony Hill played more than 500 snaps. And that was your rotation at linebacker. This year, you're going to have Justin Cryer and Raheem Biles and Brad Spence. Brad Spence at the strong side position, so not always on the field, but we'll see how Muschamp wants to play it. And Brad Spence will be in the Trey Moore role this year. You're going to have Ty Anthony Smith, who's just now kind of getting his bearings. He wasn't in the spring because of the shoulder, and probably feeling left behind. And he's not the biggest guy, so he's got to prove to Will Muschamp that he plays bigger than he is, which we know he does. Because, like, you look at Ty Anthony Smith's line last year compared to Justin Cryer's line at Florida State, it's not close. Like, Ty Anthony Smith, more tackles for loss, more forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, or one interception. But Ty Anthony Smith's he's right now proving himself to Will Muschamp. He'll be part of the rotation. Then the question is, who's that other guy, who gets into that rotation? Because I think they're going to play these young guys. They're going to play them on special teams, but I think they believe, especially Rocky Cummings, because they just don't build guys like him. Like, he's big, fast, strong, long arms, can play in coverage, but just has great instincts, gets through traffic, makes the play. I'm really excited about Rocky Cummings because number 30, I think he's going to be special.
It really feels like Texas hit on all three of their linebacker takes this year, which doesn't often happen at any position, where 100% of the guys that you sign in any class all turn out to be really good players. And I think we all kind of knew about Tyler Atkinson, right? The 5-star, Texas stole him from Georgia, a top 10 player in the country. Everyone expected him to be pretty good. And he's been training with Derek Johnson too, so that's something that people like to hear. But yeah, Kosi Okpala and Rocky Cummings, who was a very late take for Texas. So usually those guys, we just need bodies, so we'll throw somebody in there. We'll offer someone a scholarship, and we'll see. The fact that he is impressing the way that he has. That linebacker room, Chip, I think the Texas coaching staff deserves a ton of credit, because I remember how I was feeling after, obviously we knew Anthony Hill and Trey Moore were leaving, but then LaFau hits the portal, and it's like, what is the plan here? Like, what are we going to do at linebacker? Right. And then, obviously Raheem Biles, the best backer in the portal. We know how good he is. Juice Cryer seems better than advertised. T'Anthony Smith is T'Anthony Smith. Longhorn fans are familiar with his work. And then again, these 3 young freshmen there, that's about as good of a job as you could do, totally revolutionizing a position room in the span of one off season, is it not?
Yeah. And Samari Matthews is a guy to keep an eye on, because he is, again, big, long, fast, fearless guy out in coverage. And they like Hayward Howard, a guy that, again, big, strong, fast, working at safety. So I think those are 2 guys. I don't know how much playing time they get. They'll get a lot on special teams, but those are 2 guys to keep an eye on. And Smoke Riley. They brought in some talented, put together defensive backs.
Yeah.
And then, offensively, Derek Cooper and Jermaine Bishop are going to be guys. Jermaine Bishop will be on returns. I think he'll be on kick returns with Raleigh Brown. And then, punt returns, obviously Ryan Niblett. And Niblett will probably, be on kick returns too. But if Jermaine Bishop is good enough, they can, rotate him in there on kick returns as well. So, keep an eye out. I think Derek Cooper probably ends up being the short yardage guy. They like Michael Terry.
Yeah.
We'll see. Michael Terry, I think Michael Terry's determined to show people that he's a player. And so he has been running hard. And for a guy who's 6'3", 227, we'll see. But Derek Cooper, man, I heard yesterday he caught a wheel route for a touchdown. Like, he's getting it. He's comfortable. He's like he's beyond his years.
Yeah.
Blitz pick up all of it. So I think Derek Cooper's a guy you got to keep an eye on.
I'm fascinated to see what type of role he's got, because, you said it, Texas invested a lot in those top 2 transfer running backs, and those are clearly your 1 and 1A guys right now. But it seems like Derek Cooper by the day is creeping closer and closer to those 2, and almost forcing the coach's hands to get on the field at some point. But the Michael Terry conversation is interesting, because that video that Texas posted over the weekend, Michael Terry, a couple of nice carries, including getting into the end zone. It's like, I don't know if you take, or I don't know how much we're supposed to take from those little montages that they give us, but I think that Terry was out there with a lot of the first teamers on offense. Tells you that, like you said, they are trying to find something for him to do, not just in the future, but right now.
Yeah. And those little montages, they put the guys in those montages who they want to give some sugar to.
Yeah.
So those are important to pay attention to. Sure. And Michael Terry, you're right. He was featured in there. And so we'll see. He had a couple of good runs in the spring scrimmage that we saw. Looked determined. It just, how much do they rely on him? How much do they believe in him? Is he getting a lot of training camp work? And then when the season starts, not so much, or do they try and carve a role for him?
Yeah, it was 1 carry last year for Michael Terry as a freshman. Started at wide receiver, and they bounced him around. And then when Jarrett Gibson left, he started playing running back. But 1 carry for 0 yards, the official freshman stat line, and it was a pretty ugly carry. Getting Bucky's perspective as the running back coach on that one. I mean, he looked like a tight end playing running back. He looked like a guy who had never done it, which is weird because he had in high school. Like, he ran the ball a decent amount, but there was a lot of work for him to do and a lot of ground for him to make up. And maybe he's done that quicker and faster and better than originally anticipated.
Well, you're either going to, get determined and try to knock everyone's block off to gain the respect, or you're going to start looking to transfer. And I think Michael Terry is trying to knock everyone's block off, and good for him. The pride of Alamo Heights down there in San Antonio.
Rooting for him, for
Can't
sure.
remember the last Alamo Heights guy who amounted to anything, but maybe it's Michael Terry. Maybe he's the guy.
Hope you're right. Yeah, he looks so weird. 6'3", 230. You don't see that too often at the running back spot. Although, hey, Derrick Henry, 6'3", 250. So maybe, all right, I'm gonna stop right there. That's the last time those two guys will probably be mentioned in the same breath, but it's possible. Is why I bring that up. All right, Chip Brown, horns247.com, joining me here on a Friday, filling in for the Buck. The Buck's all good, just taking a few days. He'll be back on Monday. Want to get Chip's thoughts on the SEC and kind of how he views this conference going into the 2026 season, and maybe some other college football storylines from around the country. Before that, though, a couple more sponsor shout-outs, including some love to our friends at Roger Beasley Mazda South. In sports, dynasties aren't built overnight. And that's why Mazda South is hard. With 30 consecutive Mazda President's Club awards and recognized as the #1 Mazda dealer in the state of Texas, they have set the standard for excellence. Whether you're driving down Mopac or 35, parking at HEB, or headed to a Texas football game, look, you see Mazdas everywhere. Chances are a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a coworker, multiple of those people might be driving one. That's a testament to Mazda's legendary reliability, backed by the trusted name of Roger Beasley. You can't beat the quality, the customer service, or the convenience of Roger Beasley Mazda. They've been in Central Texas for 55 years, and they are still growing. And again, Roger Beasley Mazda South. How about 30 straight Mazda President's Club awards? The #1 Mazda dealer in Texas. Fantastic people, a great selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. And they'll take your trade-in, of course. Check out that new CX-5. It is a gorgeous vehicle. Go see them off of I-35, just south of Highway 71. It's Roger Beasley Mazda South. And also a shout out to Early Bird CBD. I've got me some Early Bird CBD gummies on board the cruise ship here. Love these things. I take them to relax, especially when traveling. A lot of people are traveling this summer. You're not sleeping in your own bed, or you're dealing with airports and airplanes and all the craziness that goes along with those things. Sometimes you just want to chill. Sometimes you just want to relax. And I think at all times you want to feel good. That's what Early Bird CBD products are all about. They are designed to make you feel good. It's a local Austin company. They make gummies. They make little drops that you could put into any beverage that you're consuming. They make tinctures as well. They're all going to give you the benefits of CBD plus a microdose of THC as well. earlybirdcbd.com. That's the website, promo code Bucky, and you're going to get 20% off your first order from our friends at Early Bird CBD. And some love to our friends at Woods Comfort Systems as well. 70 plus years serving Central Texas. They've done HVAC forever. They also do plumbing now. If you've got an issue with your AC, if you've got an issue with a toilet or a sink or a shower, it ain't draining the way that it's supposed to, don't try to fix this stuff yourself. You're only going to make the problems worse. Reach out to the experts at Woods Comfort Systems. They're prompt, they're on time, they will get the job done, and they will get out of your hair. That's why they've lasted as long as they have. Again, more than 70 years in Central Texas. Check out their 5-star reviews online, woodscomfortsystems.com, or call them at 512-842-5066. And a quick shout out to our guy Adam and his great team at Waterloo Printing and Graphics. If you need merch, signs, stickers, hats, whatever, if you've got a business or maybe big tailgate party coming up, reach out to Adam and his team at Waterloo Printing. Great guy, big Longhorn fan, goes to every game, tunes into the show every day. 512-300-9641. Find him on Instagram at Waterloo Printing. All right, Chip Brown, horns247.com, in for the Buck. See, Breezy, if I'm not mistaken, you filled out a SEC preseason ballot this year, correct?
I did.
Okay, so I'd love to get your thoughts around the whole conference, but we'll start at the top. Were you one of the guys who picked Texas to win the league, or did you go with the Georgia Bulldogs, who ultimately ended up being picked to win the SEC in 2026?
I did pick Texas. And I have Texas and Ole Miss in the SEC championship game. So I think, and I'm probably still under the influence of what Trinidad Chambliss did in that college football playoff quarterfinal against Georgia to win that game. I thought the guy was incredible. And then, they nearly beat Miami. I mean, okay. Carson Beck runs in for that touchdown and, with a minute and barely a minute left. And he was driving him down the field, was throwing it in the end zone to win that game. So I know Ole Miss lost some players, but they have Trinidad Chambliss back. They have Kejuan Lacey back. They've got really key components on their defense back. The Eccles kid in the defensive line, and the Suntarine Perkins at linebacker. So I think that's a dangerous game for Texas. I get Ole Miss has an incredible schedule. They play Louisville, which is going to be good this year. They play LSU. I think they win that game. They've got to play at Texas on October 24th. They play Georgia in Oxford. They play at Oklahoma. So it's a tough schedule. And I get, Georgia. I mean, again, Georgia's got 2 tough games on their schedule. And I've got them losing both. They play Oklahoma in Athens on September 26th. That'll tell us a lot. But they play at Alabama October 10th, and they play at Ole Miss November 7th. And I've got Georgia losing both of those games. So I'm not crazy high on Alabama. Not as high as some, because I think you've got some questions now at quarterback. In addition, no more Ty Simpson. In addition to your offensive line and your ability to run the football. So Nick Brooks could end up playing for Alabama on the offensive line this year. They've got him at right tackle, where he probably should have been at Texas, but was. But so I've got Texas, Ole Miss, 1-2, Georgia 3rd, OU 4th. I think OU is going to be tough because their defense is so good. And then, John Mateer's a year better, and, we'll see how much Parker Livingston helps OU. They are expecting him. They're expecting him to help a lot, because Isaiah Satania is their speed guy. They're move him all over the field guy, and they want Parker Livingston to be their outside receiver who can get behind the defense. And then I had LSU at 5. I think LSU will get better as the year goes on. I think they'll lose to Ole Miss early, and then I think by the time Texas plays them, in November, I think LSU is going to be pretty tough if they're still healthy and Sam Leavitt is still quarterbacking. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, Georgia, they always have dudes, and I like Gunnar Stockton, but they lost Zachariah Branch, who was their speed receiver. I like Nate Frazier. Georgia's going to be tough. Probably, common sense says Georgia.
Yeah, you're going off the beaten path by not only not picking them to win the SEC, but not even picking them to make the SEC title game. You said it earlier. They've been in Atlanta 8 of the last 9 years, including 5 in a row. So that's a bold move by you. Bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off. So do you have –
I think Trinidad Chambliss is a freak.
Yeah.
I think that kid is super special. I mean, he kind of reminds me of Colt McCoy. I mean, he just makes plays. He runs, he throws, he evades the rush. That guy, and all he does is win.
Right. Well, they almost got Georgia twice. I mean, they played that shootout in the regular season in Athens that went down to the wire. Obviously, Georgia won that one, and then in the rematch in the CFP, Ole Miss got the better of them. But Kirby Smart has not figured out how to slow down Trinidad Chambliss yet, and he'll get another chance here in 2026. So, yeah, Ole Miss, we'll see. We'll see how Pete Golding does. If Lane Kiffin was still there, obviously there'd be a lot of different conversations this offseason, but I think people would be feeling a little better about Ole Miss kind of replicating their success from a year ago. But I saw someone make the, Rodney Terry, Chris Beard comparison. I think maybe people view Pete Golding in a higher light than Rodney Terry, but obviously it's a different situation now that it is his team versus just being the interim coach. And I wonder with Georgia, Chip, like, what, you mentioned Zachariah Branch. Okay, where's the skill guys? Where's the
Right.
George Pickens? Where's the Zachariah Branch? Where's the Adonai Mitchell? And then also, where's the War Daddies on the defensive line? Like, you always assume they're going to have them because they're Georgia. Last year, though, they weren't really good, at least by Georgia standards in that department. I think they were last or second to last in the SEC in sacks, which isn't telling. They didn't have that bad of a defensive line, but we know what Georgia typically is. They need players like that to emerge because they're not just thinking SEC title. I think they're almost tired of winning those at this point. For them to get back to the national championship conversation and start making runs in the playoff again, they've got to find some dudes on the outside and up front on defense, I think. I don't know if they have them.
That's the thing, because you lost, and you lost the spine of your defense last year at Georgia, because you had, you had CJ Allen.
Mm-hmm.
You had, Kristen Miller up front. You had Dalen Everett, at the corner spot, who has tortured Texas. And so you lost some key leaders, and we know Kirby always has dudes, but you're right. They don't have the Jalen Carters, the Jordan Davises, the Devontae Wyatts up front. They don't have Damon Wilson. They don't have Michael Williams. At least not that we've seen.
Right.
Returning on that defense. So I think, the schedule is favorable for Georgia, and is probably the reason they're going to make the playoff, whether they make the SEC championship game or not. So Texas is probably going to have to deal with them at some point. And, but yeah, it's interesting because, Alabama has questions on the offensive line. Can they run the ball? Where's their quarterback? I love Keelan Russell, but he hasn't done it yet. And so we got to see how he looks under the lights. And then, like Texas A&M, they're replacing guys on the offensive line. Marcel Reed has struggled from the pocket. And so, I like A&M, but I don't love A&M.
Yeah. Two new coordinators too.
Yeah. And Holman Wiggins as your offensive coordinator, it felt like, maybe, because Sark and Holman Wiggins worked together at Alabama, that maybe Elko thought Sark was going to come after Holman Wiggins to, coach some position on offense, and Elko elevated him to play caller, when Colin Klein went to Kansas State. So he's never called plays. So we don't know what he's like as the offensive coordinator. So I'm little gun shy on A&M. Tennessee, they didn't get Joey Aguilar back at quarterback. But Josh Heupel always has a quarterback.
Yeah.
And so I think Tennessee, their biggest problems were on defense last year. And did Tennessee fix the defense? Jim Knowles comes in. His system is complicated. It's like Venable's system. It usually takes a year for everyone to get comfortable in it. Well, that's That means there could be some vulnerabilities this year. That's good for Texas. I like who's the other team?
You got a sleeper in this conference somewhere.
Sleeper action. Auburn. Auburn, I think, is a little bit of a sleeper because you got Byram Brown coming over from South Florida with John Summerall, and they got some guys. Like, I'm not saying they're going to contend, but I think they're going to knock someone off. And you look at their schedule.
They'll have opportunities to do that.
Yeah, Jordan Hare is a tough place to play. You get, Auburn's playing at Georgia. Georgia usually struggles at Auburn. But LSU, I think they can knock off LSU. At Alabama.
Yeah, Iron Bowl. Yeah, it's interesting. So you mentioned you've Texas 1, Ole Miss 2, Georgia 3, and OU 4, and LSU 5. Are you going 4 SEC teams? Are you going 5 SEC teams in the college football playoff?
I can see 5.
Okay.
But you can't have more than 2 losses, and that with the way this committee has been going. So it's going to be a tight window, but I do think LSU's probably high, but like I said, I think they'll be tough as the season goes on, and Ole Miss is going to get them early, I think.
Is that the game that worries you the most from a Texas standpoint? I mean, obviously it's a tough schedule. Ohio State, preseason number 1 in the coaches poll. I think they might be preseason number 1 in the AP poll. We know what they've done against Texas lately. Oklahoma and A&M go to College Station. Obviously Ole Miss, who you're very high on, you talked about them. Obviously it's a home game for Texas, but is that late November tilt in Baton Rouge very likely on a Saturday night? Is that the game that worries you the most from a Texas perspective?
Yeah. Yeah. That, OU is going to be tough, but I think Texas has the horsepower to beat OU, and then Ole Miss, even in Austin, I think is going to be a tougher game than people realize. And, but LSU, yeah, that's Texas needs to bring their everything to that party. Because I do think Texas beats A&M in Kyle Field, which is no easy feat. But they've got Marcel Reed.
Yeah, they have the last 2 years for sure. It's interesting. Obviously, we'll know so much more about these teams by the time we get to that stage in the season. But I do like, and I know you've talked about this before, kind of shakes up nicely for Texas that 7 of their first 8 games are in the state of Texas. Obviously, 6 of them are in Austin. So, it's an experienced team, but there are a lot of newcomers. It's guys playing together for the first time. It's nice to get some kinks out, solve some problems, friendly confines of DKR TMS, which is what Texas gets to open up the year. Obviously, November, 3 of the 4 games on the road. It's not going to be an easy end to the season, but to play all these games, again, early on in your home barn is, I think, something that should pay dividends for this team. It feels very different than what they had a season ago.
Yeah, and if you beat Ohio State, that's a juice game. I mean, That's a game that gives you so much juice and probably catapults you to number 1. And that, that's what the 05 team did. Now they had USC, who was going to be number 1 no matter what. But Texas immediately went to number 2 and was, comfortable in that role
all year.
Let's see how Texas handles it, because if that sense of mission, that sense of we're the team that and we know it, that should come through, and you should not get the clunker. But the clunker always seems to show up. Now for Texas, when you look at it, the games that could be the clunker, It might be Ole Miss in the middle of the year, even though it's a home game. I think they handle Tennessee. I just, I don't think Tennessee's defense is good enough to contain Texas. At Missouri, I just don't. Eli Drinkwitz doesn't beat ranked teams.
Right.
So
it's a road game in November. People are worried about that. Could be cold, but you're right. I mean, Eli Drinkwitz, he beats up on bad teams, and then every time he plays somebody good, he comes up small. So
yeah.
I'm not that worried about that one either. I'm with you.
So I think they lose to LSU and go 11-1.
I think just about everybody would sign for that if offered the opportunity, and I think the head coach would sign for that if given the opportunity. So, that'll be a fun one for sure. Glad you didn't bring up Florida. That's we can't have another stinker against the Gators after what happened last year.
And Florida's, they got some guys back. Jaden Baugh. Let's see what they've got at quarterback, and they got some good guys on defense, some good pieces on defense. So Texas, and they're physical. I mean, look, that's going to be a better Florida team than people realize. And, Texas has got some payback there.
Yeah, better than the one that beat Texas last year for sure. But, revenge on the mind for sure. And then I'll ask you this, Chip, as we sort of put a bow on this conversation on a Friday show. The Ohio State game, week 2. Is that a must-win for Texas? Bucky's used that phrase a lot. Do you think it is a must-win game for Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns on September 12th?
It's not a must-win, but it takes some of that margin for error out.
Oh, yeah.
That's a win that people are going to look for a reason to put you into the playoff. And not, whereas a loss, if it's close like last year, it would not kill Texas, but that they just need it for the juice that it would give them early in the season to help carry them through to where they're playing those 3 games on the road in November. Because if you can smell the college football playoff, that should be enough to pull you through. And look, Texas, man, they may go undefeated. I mean, they're that talented, I think, but I'm not going to predict that because with this schedule.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be perfect, but I have Texas and Notre Dame in the national championship.
Okay. Have you picked a winner for that game yet?
I mean, I think Texas should win it, but
all right.
What
a matchup that would be. In Vegas, out of all places?
In Vegas.
Oh, I'd love to be playing some craps with you or blackjack or something at the casinos there in late January. That'd be fun.
Let's do it.
Let's make it happen. All right, great stuff. Chip Brown, horns247.com, picking Texas to win the national championship at the end of the show. That's a good way to send everybody into the weekend. Chip, before we wrap up, always like to give you the chance to promote horns247.com and everything you're doing and everything the entire crew has rolling over there on site.
Yeah, get over to horns247.com. Great intel, great reporting and writing. David Eckert and Eric Henry, myself, we're getting close to, making a big announcement on a staff edition. And become an annual member, because that way you get VIP access to all the team sites on the 24/7 Sports Network, and you get an annual subscription to Paramount Plus. So if you are into the UFC, you get all those fights for free, and all the great shows, Landman, you name it. So many reasons to get over to horns247.com for this coverage of this, what could be a special year in all Longhorn sports, it seems. Basketball, women's basketball, softball, we cover it all.
Yeah, 100%. Horns247.com. I've got 2 subscriptions to the site. That's how you know it's the real deal. Any plans for you this weekend, Sea Breezy? You just taking it easy?
Yeah, just I'll be bird dogging that scrimmage tomorrow because it's closed. So we'll have to, talk to sources and then just keep churning out the content.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for doing this, my man. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Always fun. I know it won't be the last time this happens. Enjoy the
Appreciate it.
weekend. Enjoy the weekend. And y'all all enjoy the weekend.
Enjoy the cruise.
Thank you.
Someone was asking, did you kick your girl out of the room or is she just sleeping because it's early there?
She's asleep. Yeah, we got this curtain. You can kind of see on the,
oh yeah,
I guess what to the right of me, to the left of me, depending on which way you're looking at me. But yeah, there's a curtain. So I don't think it's soundproof. She's probably not real happy with me talking the last 2 hours. But no, I haven't kicked her out. More importantly, she has not kicked me out yet.
Because what is it, 8 a.m. there?
It is 8. Full disclosure, at some point it's going to be glacier time. So right now it's Pacific time, so 8 a.m., but they told us it was going to be a 3-hour time difference. And so I woke up an hour before we started thinking, I was about to text you at like 7 a.m. local time. Hey, Chip, where are you? And then I realized, oh, no, we're still in Pacific time. So as of now, it's 8 a.m., but it's about to be 7 a.m. here, I guess. I don't know.
Go enjoy yourself. Enjoy the crab legs, the casino, all of it. And I want a full report.
100%. You will get one. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Hope everyone enjoys the weekend, and we will talk to y'all soon. Welcome.